Now, usually, after the APB show, stream channel, link down below, go subscribe, I post highlights of the stream into this channel, but I figured that it's a little bit lazy to do that. Sorry, what? Definitely lazy. Okay, shush you. Not to mention, I have to not monetize the stream clips because there are lots and lots of swearing, and the things that I talk about will scare all the advertisers away, which is not exactly good for revenue. This video is going to recap a bunch of the things that we talk about at the stream, but do keep in mind that this recap is going to be the advertiser-friendly version. Not necessarily family-friendly, but at least enough for me to be able to keep the dollar green. Hopefully. If you want the raw, genuine, uncensored, and unfiltered reactions of all the news that I talk about in this recap, you're gonna have to see my stream channel once again, linked down below. Until then, here's your weekly recap of the dumb events last week that we talk about on stream, and keep in mind that I don't cover all of them, I only cover the funniest, most exciting parts, and also sometimes most important. If you want to get straight to the sections that you want, use the chapters feature. Anyway, let's get started. This doesn't get to the main hoopla, but it is important to be discussed because a lot of people have been discussing this, and I think this is my best contribution to the discussion. People have been talking about the Earn It Act, which is a bill that was proposed in 2020 but got dropped after a public resistance. It's now being proposed once again. What's being proposed inside the bill is the protection towards children who suffered from all sorts of heinous things being done by the online predators lurking around the internet. This bill gives protection to those children by allowing government officials and law enforcement to either bypass or straight up remove social media encryptions and give backdoor access to all sorts of social media around the world, especially the ones that have branches or headquarters in the US, which is a lot of them. The idea is to have law enforcement to access those particular backdoors to find out if a child has been in any forms of danger by investigating accounts that they deem suspicious. And by accounts they deem suspicious, we mean all accounts, including mine and including yours. Doesn't matter if you don't pose a threat to children, you're still treated as if you are. So to put it simply, that Captain America scene.
For once, we're way ahead of the curve.
By holding a gun to everyone on Earth and calling it protection.
This is just another installment of the government wanting to take away your privacy, which, by the way, the CIA was also recently exposed doing the same thing as well, to no one's surprise. It doesn't matter if you don't want it. The government needs it so that they can do whatever they want with it. They can use all forms of excuse to take away your privacy. It can be for the safety of the children. It can be to find out terrorists. At the end of the day, this is what they're doing. And Captain America, once again, summed up my feelings pretty well.
This isn't freedom. This is fear.
There's a lot of backlash against this proposal, especially from people who absolutely need to have their privacy protected. This bill will let government officials and law enforcement to treat all of you as if you're criminals. They don't want to have any forms of encryption so that they can snoop into whatever you're posting. All of this in the name of protecting children. I'm not quite certain in how spying on people's conversations are going to work to mitigate the issue of children being harmed by online predators, but it seems that this is the solution that the government thinks to be the best course of action because more and more adults are refusing to adhere to their parental responsibilities. Link down below is a website straight to EFF where US-based citizens can contact their representatives to prevent this bill from taking place. You can go ahead and make your call right there. For anyone else around the world, the best thing you can do is to just basically wipe out your social media. Not delete your account, but wipe out everything that you've posted in the past couple of months or years. It won't save you from the archive websites and screenshots, but even they can't save everything, and it still needs human beings active enough to save them. The discussion of violence in video games continues once again, and this week there are a couple of instigators on this topic. The first instigator comes from a PC Gamer article titled, "Do Glory Kills Need to Calm the Hell Down?" An article that is about as legitimate as, "Do horror movie gores need to calm down?" But I suppose this is one of those slow news days at PC Gamer. The writer couldn't grasp in how people would perceive this article. The writer says, "This isn't a 'won't somebody please think of the children' article." Could have fooled me. Just because you say it doesn't make it so. It will definitely appear as another installment of "Won't somebody please think of the children" moral panics. The writer clarified that he's merely confused in why game developers, particularly those who make shooters, are in an arms race to see who can make the most spectacularly violent acts. I think what you're trying to say here is, I don't understand why people find it fun. Which is a perfectly fine statement until you have to desperately try to prove to everyone that your opinion is the correct one by providing weak arguments after weak arguments supporting your main point. At which point you're just desperate. Either desperate for validation or desperate for views. Even worse when you think that your opinion is the moral one. Either way, not a good look. What I find surprising about this article is that the writer doesn't really bash Doom for its inclusion of glory kills, so it's baffling in why the writer would put Doom as his front page header picture. I suppose it's because Doom is the one game that gamers would think about when they hear about glory kills. But the writer didn't criticize Doom. In fact, the writer considers the inclusion perfectly acceptable and are totally willing to let the Doomslayer to commit all sorts of atrocities to the demons that are taking over the world. Another game that the writer has little to no qualms with is Wolfenstein, which does feature some form of brutal murder animations towards the Nazis, but even then, the writer still displays a sense of disgust towards the aforementioned video game's brutal murders. I can even argue that the paragraph is the writer saying, okay, the Nazis are like really evil and committed all sorts of horrible stuff, but come on guys, some of these kills are way too much. Writer, and I mean this sincerely, the internet is not a friendly place for people who think that the Nazis got way too much flack, especially the ones that were, you know, fictional. The writer of course complains about Call of Duty, but the only Call of Duty I'm familiar with is Black Ops 2, one of the few good ones that let you play against bots. Never played Cold War and never will, especially when I have to give money to Activision Blizzard, and especially when the game eats up way too much SSD space like a hungry dog. I also never played Shadow of War, but I did play Shadow of Mordor, and I can at least somewhat see what the writer is arguing in terms of brutality. It's just that, well, these characters are orcs, and they're the designated bad guys. I also never played Titanfall 2's multiplayer components or Halo 5 in general, so no comments on those. And finally, we get to the game that the writer finds the most contentious, which is Far Cry 6. Far Cry 6 doesn't take itself too seriously. I'd even go so far as to say that it's not a dark game at all. There are dramatic moments, of course, but the game doesn't treat itself too seriously, and therefore the writer's complaint about the game being way too violent, it's like complaining about a horror movie being way too violent. But this isn't the only discussion that happens in regards to violence in gaming and fiction. We'll get to the next one in a bit, and the next one is even more ludicrous. Hasan Piker. I'm not too familiar with his content, if you'd like to call them that, but he is a popular streamer, and that's an undeniable fact. For one reason after another. He's not always popular for good reasons though, and recently he bought a Porsche and people are upset that he's rich. Last August, the entire hoopla with Hasan buying a house, it's already really stupid to begin with. Despite identifying as a socialist, he bought a house worth millions of dollars. It's not a good look presenting yourself as a socialist with lots of power and influence when your followers are struggling to pay rent. Last time I checked, the people who benefited the most from it are the rich and powerful, and not the poor and weak, or even the average Joe. The backlash towards the car is the exact same, and it seems that he keeps on doubling down on it. Obviously, his fans and followers are also gonna defend him on this. One of the counter arguments that they have against this whole hoopla is that it's not hypocritical to critique capitalism while participating in it. Okay, that's your subjective philosophical point of freaking view, but Hasan isn't participating in capitalism, he's benefiting from it. That brings me to the next point, which is even more asinine. People are critiquing capitalism largely because we are forced to participate in order to survive. Are you seriously gonna look at someone like Hasan and think that he is a survivor of capitalism? You are not forced to survive by living in a multi-million-dollar mansion or having an expensive car. I am forced to survive by living in a small two-story house that I can barely pay. I'm sure a lot of you are forced to survive by having to either pay rent, mortgage, or even stay at your parents' or relatives' house while still being in debt. I have a $25 microphone. He has a $400 microphone that costs $700 here. People talk about privilege all the time in social media, but a lot of times they always talk about privilege based on physical characteristics. I think people who are privileged enough to buy expensive mansions and cars should absolutely check their privilege before taking a stance against a system that they clearly, plain as day, 100% benefited from. Not forced to participate, benefited from. The Kotaku article is even more ridiculous. Sure, he may be a socialist, but even socialist needs housing and transportation. Writer, you pompous buffoon. What's wrong with a normal suburban house? What's wrong with a cheap used car? Oh, sorry, what was that? It's not luxurious enough for your bourgeois lifestyle? Please forgive me, for I am a filthy peasant who clearly misunderstood the rich people lifestyle. A lifestyle that consists of expensive goods and streams consist of other people's content with little to no commentary. The writer's answer to this is, Piker also doesn't owe you anything, and he's free to do whatever he wants. Writer, he's perfectly allowed to make horrible financial decisions, and I'm here to tell people that he just made horrible financial decisions. He's buying expensive houses and expensive cars that I'm sure 99% of his viewer base couldn't afford just so that he can flex on them, which is a complete antithesis to the ideology that he preached. I guess I just don't get it. I don't get the picture, I don't get the vibe, I don't understand it, and most importantly, I don't get it in general. Good for you, Hasan. Anyone else, here's a PSA. Please don't be like him and have some financial responsibility. There's even more outrage towards the video game Sifu. Sifu, in case you missed it, is an action beat-em-up video game that's based on martial arts action movies. It's also a really tough game. I played the game and it's pretty dang good. I haven't finished it yet, but that's mostly because I suck at the game. I really need to get good. Last time, some game journals were outraged on this game because the developers are white, and this is a game with a lot of Chinese influence. Sorry, but I don't see how that really matters in the grand scheme of things. Dark Souls is centered on a medieval Western setting, and the developers are not from the West. Ghost of Tsushima is centered on a medieval samurai setting, and the developers aren't from Japan. The entire Metal Gear Solid series is influenced so much by the Western culture, and the developers aren't from the West. It's interesting to see people from outside a certain culture observe that culture through the medium of art. They can either do it well or screw it up to pieces, but either way, both ways are perfectly valid and open to criticism. Keyword, criticism. These things that the game journals did are not criticisms. All they did is to point out that the developers are white and make up excuses in how it's a big trouble. A lot of the game journals cited the Gamer's article criticizing Sifu for having white developers, which for the record is written by someone who is really, and I mean really, bigoted towards white people. He claims that it's not personal to his white friends though, so that's fine, I guess. This is the kind of worldview that a lot of these journalists are proposing, especially when they keep on citing his article. A worldview where bigotry towards a certain race is justified because they're the majority race. These are the same people that say that bigotry can lead to violence. Well, by your logic, then it's only a matter of time when your bigotry can lead to violence as well. It's only a matter of time before your bigotry can override your friendship. Some of these writers are so unbelievably bigoted that they have to mention about how hard it is for them to not think about it. And this happens to multiple different writers from multiple different articles. It's amazing. It's like they're a collective hive mind. One article has to talk about how the Asians in the West are minorities. What the hell does being an Asian in the West have to do with a French game about a Chinese culture? You're just projecting your personal racial insecurities at that point. And if we're gonna talk about authenticity, why does this game need to be authentic to the Chinese culture, but games like Battlefield 5 is perfectly okay to not be authentic to the World War II experience? It's almost as if people have personal biases towards a certain demographic. The whole issue of Sifu is summed up as video games centered on a certain culture are being developed by people who aren't from that culture. So what? So is Dark Souls, so is Tsushima, so is Metal Gear Solid, so is Kenna. Kenna is heavily influenced from my culture. And the game is amazing. I played these games and the criticisms being leveled at the companies are nonsensical, idiotic, and will fall flat under any forms of scrutiny. Which is why these people will block you in social media if you dare to criticize them. I'm just glad that the game's doing really well. Game's good. Go buy it. Here's another hoopla centered on video game violence. Marfa is Dead is an upcoming horror game. The game got into a bit of a hoopla because the PlayStation version, both the PS4 and the PS5, have removed and censored certain elements of the game. The PC and the Xbox versions, on the other hand, are completely unaffected. Simply unfathomable. Never seen this coming. Now, you might be asking, which element of the game has been censored or removed? Well, some people have their speculations, and one of the speculation leads into a scene in the game where the character has to, well, you know the movie Face Off with Nicolas Cage and John Travolta? The scene is basically you doing the face off using a razor. It sounds about as uncomfortable as you'd expect. Here's the thing. From what I gathered, this is just speculation, so we don't really know if it's really this specific scene that got censored or removed. But one thing is for sure, people's reaction to the scene is amazing. It just shows how people really need to consume a lot more pop culture, especially Face Off. I mean, come on y'all. That film is a classic. People are shocked, terrified, outraged, hysterical, and because of that, the pro-censorship arguments are coming in fast. I am pretty sure this scene adds nothing to the game. Oh, it absolutely does. I'm enjoying the salt line as we speak. But if we are gonna judge things based on how they add nothing to the game, let me present you The Last of Us 2's entire existence. People die in games all the time. People don't cut off people's face with a razor. Two very different things. So what you're saying is, it's okay to kill people, but not okay to cut their face off. This is not entertaining for the healthy mind. That's a subjective philosophical point of flipping view. This is a D-rated game. Demonic. Yeah, that's what the fundamentalist Christians used to say. How amazing that we've come full circle. Yeah, Sony has every right to not allow this on their console. I'm not for censorship, but I can understand why they would censor this. Well, I can't. Your reasoning is, ew, that's disgusting. And my response to that is, really? This really isn't the worst thing that's been released in the Sony platform, guys. Now, you can check out the scene on YouTube. I won't show it here. Personally, it's kind of cool. No, really, I mean it. I've never seen a video game that lets you to skin someone like that. I've seen video games that skin animals. Red Dead Redemption games have plenty of those, but not skinning human beings. If you guys are terrified of this face-off scene, you guys clearly have never played Dead Space 2. And for those of you who played Dead Space 2, you know which scene I'm talking about. It stings my eyes just to think about it. So to put it simply, people who haven't played too much video games are exposed to video games that they never exposed before and get shocked by the presence of gore. Seriously, you guys need to play more games. Actually, you know what? Considering how you immediately went pro-censorship on these, don't play more games. Stay away from this hobby. This hobby clearly isn't for you. And finally, the one big event that disappointed so many VTuber Simps around the world. It turns out that a female VTuber has a relationship with a male VTuber, and the fans are livid. Uruha Rusya is a VTuber and member of Hololive that recently got exposed for being friends with another VTuber or idol or coworker or whoever because a Discord chat popped up during a stream. That has led into a social media outrage that's just simply unprecedented. Most people that I've seen are unsubscribing or canceling their YouTube membership. Some people are legitimately considering offing themselves. Some people are sending death threats to both of the VTubers in question. Doesn't matter if they're in a romantic relationship or just being friends or just being co-workers. That one Discord message is enough to set the fans ablaze. Now, bear in mind that this is just me seeing this entire thing from an outsider's perspective, but I've talked about this in the past, and it's not hard to predict because this is nothing new. The only reason why it's new is because the girls are 2D rather than 3D. This has been a thing in Japan since forever. Idols are popular in Japan, and they're so popular that the idea of one of the members having a significant other can potentially destroy their public image and subsequently their careers. Some are even contractually obligated to not have any relationship. That's amazing. It's like if simping is legitimized on paper. So this is just par for the course for the entertainment industry, the idol culture, and right now the VTuber culture. There are lots and lots of VTubers out there that sell the idea that their character fulfills the lonely void that millions of people have around the world. And that's wonderful. That's amazing. Unfortunately, some of those people are so lonely that VTubers are their only interaction that they got with a person, thus creating this parasocial relationship. But what's really depressing is that the parasocial relationship barrier is slowly but surely breaking. It's no longer artist provides content, but the viewer can't react much. It's that artist provides content and the viewers can react to it live through the medium of super chats. Some VTubers, not all of them but some, will answer to the super chats directly. Heck, some will answer to the chats directly. The more back and forth that the chat does with the VTuber, the more the parasocial relationship barrier gets lower and lower. It's almost as if you're actually talking to them. But the VTuber space is very competitive. The fans are gonna compete and see who's the one that the VTuber love the most or noticed by senpai the most. As much as I really want to make fun of the really crazy VTuber Sims out there, the more and more I think about this, the sadder and sadder this entire thing is. Behind the chats and super chats and fan mails, there are lonely individuals with little to nothing left in their lives. The reaction that some of these people have are so breathtakingly depressing. I genuinely believe that these VTubers are their only lifelines. If they got graduated, so are the fans. And by graduate, I mean they off themselves, potentially off themselves. These VTubers could be the only reason why they're still alive. If they graduate, they have nothing else to live for. And to be honest with you, it's really hard to pinpoint who's at fault. Should we blame the VTubers because they continuously fester these kinds of communities? No, because at the end of the day, all they provide is entertainment, just like any other entertainers out there. Should we blame society for neglecting these lonely individuals? Maybe, but it's not the only cause for concern. At the end of the day, this is just really sad. I can point and laugh how I want, but after all that, it's just nothing but sad thoughts coming through my head. The more and more I think about it, the more and more it highlights their lonely and depressing lives. The only thing I want from them is that if they are really dependent on these VTubers for their life, they should really seek help. These VTubers don't live forever. They don't stay with you forever. They're gonna graduate sooner or later, and I cannot imagine how you'd feel when the one and only reason you're still alive is being taken away from you just like that. To put it simply, people are just down bad, man. And that's all for the video today. If you like it, you can go ahead and click the like button and subscribe for more. If you wish, you can support the channel through the links down below. And thanks for watching.